Now, I'm going to break down in this video what my 24 years has taught me, and I'm going to put out of 10 different factors how important I feel those kind of things have affected my career progression within the fashion industry. So we're going to go over fashion shows, models, fashion school, sewing, investment, studio, PR, business acumen, niche, and customer. So first of all is fashion shows. Now, I haven't done a fashion show, God, it's been at least 10 years. I think the last fashion show I actually did was in East London, and it didn't go particularly well from an organizational point of view. I mean, I got the usual, your stuff's nice, you're a really great designer, but no one at that specific fashion show, or I don't believe I got any sales that led from me doing that fashion show. And each fashion show costs you at least £1,000 if you're doing it properly. I'd say at my level, it's costing like upwards of £5,000 if you're doing it properly. And I would say that even if it was Fashion Week, even if it was London Fashion Week now, which will cost me about £50,000, you're not really going to directly get the sales back from it straight away. It's going to be a long-term investment. And I'll equate that to trade shows as well. I spent about £6,000 on a trade show, and we got no sales. Well, we got one sale from it, but not enough sales to cover the cost of the trade show. So I would say fashion shows in themselves can be important from a PR point of view, but from a making money point of view, I would say it's probably about a 2 out of 10 for me. And that is quite harsh being a fashion designer, but I tend to look at things from the point of view of making money. I'm not one of those designers that kind of dreams, lofty dreams with no kind of end goal of, making a livelihood. If I can't make a livelihood in my business, then I shouldn't be in it. So yeah, for me, fashion shows definitely gets a 2 out of 10. Next, we've got models. Now, there was a time when I was using black models, and some of them were actually my friends. So they weren't models per se, they weren't trained models. And I remember getting some feedback from buyers that labeled us as an urban brand. And this was when I had a high street label. And I guess no one explicitly said it's because you're using a black model. But that was the inference that I got, because when we used a white model, the feedback changed. And I'm someone that's actually been criticized for not using black models, even though historically I have. I think because now I do luxury fashion, people see me as a black designer, that I should always be using black models. And people they can have their own opinion. Now, we tend to choose models based on how they fit for the look that we're going for and the size of the garments, and also who's available. There's been times, even literally last week, there was a beautiful dark skin model that was number 1 on my list to choose for a shoot, and she was getting on a flight the day we did the shoot. Now, some might say reschedule the shoot for when she's available, and I could have done that, but there were deadlines that we had to keep to that couldn't be missed. So I couldn't just wipe out the organization of other people and the finances that have gone to all these other different things. But to sum up, using models is so key, because the right model will signal the right thing to your customer. So it's that unspoken thing. So I would rate models a 10 out of 10. I am not a believer in using AI models. I think any label that uses AI models continuously, they don't care enough about the craft of fashion, and they don't care enough about their audience. For me, it's very lazy. I think that it's obvious to tell when a designer is using an AI model, unless it's some kind of, I don't know, special message that you're trying to send. The AI model thing is a no-no. Use real models all the way. Next, we've got fashion school. Now, I'm someone I graduated from one of the best fashion universities in the world, London College of Fashion. I also did my I did my foundation degree at Camberwell College of Arts. So it's all in the UAL family. I've also lectured at fashion universities as well, Central St Martin's, London College of Fashion. I'm going to be one of the newest lecturers of Instituto Maragoni. I hope I've said that right. So I have a wealth of experience in terms of both sides of what fashion school is from a student point of view and how it is from an academia point of view. And I would say my personal experience of fashion school was, I don't think it made much of a difference to the progression of my career. If I'm being harsh, I would say that I could have done better quickly or quicker without it. I said to one person the other day, the money I spent on my degree, I could have pumped that into a business and kind of had the same odds of success, really. So one thing that I really found useful at fashion school was the access to resources. And that's what I used to help propel my business, because being a student, you haven't got a lot of money. Well, I didn't anyway. So the access to machinery, I was making really complex garments with machines that I taught myself, and then I got the technicians, Claudette and Hilary, to teach me how to use them. And because I already started to develop a client base whilst I was doing my degree, I would do most of my sewing at uni. And then I was fortunate enough to have a domestic and an industrial machine at home. So when I was doing late night projects, I could work at home, but the things that required unique finishing, that was all done at university. So I'll say the fashion school that you attend is very important. Whilst I can't speak of the fashion schools that are outside of London, obviously you've got the main two. I personally wouldn't have wanted a degree from anywhere other than Central St Martin's or London College of Fashion, because in my mind, an employer or the world wouldn't have took me seriously. But for me, I would put my fashion school experience, the importance of it, I'd put it at I'll be kind, I'll put it at 5 out of 10. Next, we've got sewing experience. Now, I did a post maybe about a month or two ago that's on about 15,000 views on my socials. And I said that I don't think one can be a real fashion designer unless you know how to sew. And I put a poll out on it. Now, the vast majority of people agreed with me. And there were a few valid points where certain designers, I think like one person used Karl Lagerfeld as an example of someone that doesn't know how to sew, but still a fashion designer. There's an exception to every rule. And I don't think it's an exception that one should be proud of. I think that if you're not able to acquaint yourself with how a sewing machine works, if you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to make garments that are kind of 10 out of 10. But if you don't know the basics of using a sewing machine, I don't think it's possible for you to be a great designer. Because when you design garments, there's certain technical knowledge that you need to have in terms of just how gravity affects how you make a garment, which fabrics you need to use, what finishings you need to use, which machines create different finishes. And that's where a lot of designers do buck up on problems, because they don't know the technical lingo, they don't know the technical kind of framework that goes around making a garment. So 9 out of 10 times they will produce something that has been seen already. And that for me is dead. I started sewing when I was 18. My mum taught me how to sew, and I'm now going to be 42. So that's a solid 24 years I've been sewing garments. And I prioritize making clothes more than kind of pitching to celebrities. So I stand by this thing where that the sewing element, the sewing skill is vital to becoming a great fashion designer. So I'm going to put the sewing at a 10. Cool. Next, we've got investment. And now, someone who, I think I've had a small amount of investment in the past, maybe a couple of thousand here and there. And actually, I'll correct myself. The first label I had, that was heavily invested. The second label I have, the label I have now, Emile Vidal Carr, I've had like a couple £1,000s here and there. The majority of the way I've funded my label has been through bank loans. So I'd get the loan and then I'd pay it back, and I did that over a cycle of 5 years. I say average, I'm kind of loaning out about 20 grand. So it's not so much money that I can never afford to pay it back. Now, there's been 2 points where I've tried to go for investment. Most recently last year, and that fell through. And I think it fell through for good reasons, but not the reasons related to the business. This was just a personal matter that the investor had to deal with. I think with a lot of fashion businesses, that it's not the money they need, it's the demand from the customer they need. Because if you have demand from the customer, they'll pay you for your products. If you kind of force yourself that you need the investment to get to the next stage without the customer track record, the sales track record, then that's the wrong approach. And you're going to end up, I guarantee you, you will end up not being able to pay back the investor. And that's where a lot of designers get brought out of their businesses, because they're too fussed on the investment side of things. So I'm glad that I haven't received any investment for my business that can ever risk anyone buying me out. So I remember seeing Dave Ramsey, he said this quote, he likes to see people on the front cover of Slow Business Weekly. So I'm about growing my business very slowly, very cautiously, knowing where every penny's going, and just being proud of the rate of growth, not the speed of growth. Yeah. So investment, I would say it's a number 2. You only really need investment if you've got a proven track record and you feel that expansion is gonna 10x your business. But make sure you've got the cash flow forecast to prove that. Yeah? So next we have studio. Now, since the age of, I'd say 21 years old, I've always had my own studio. So initially I started off from a place in Balham, which was the basement of a shop. And then we moved to Tooting next. And then from Tooting, we moved to Chelsea. Chelsea closed that business down. And then when I started this new business, I was working at home for a bit. And then I got a place in Woolwich, which I was at for 14 years. And I had a lot of great memories. We moved, I think, 4 or 5 times within the grounds of that place. And each time it was a bigger studio. And now I'm located not too far from where I was before, but I'm located in Royal Arsenal in a really nice office. Now, there was a period last year actually where I took maybe 6 months out where I didn't have a studio, and not many people know this. And whilst that was a period that I needed just for my own sanity, I would struggle to not have my own studio because I love my own space. It's one of the reasons why I don't work for anybody, because it's kind of like I want to set my own rules. I want to bet on myself. If I'm working out of a shared space, then I can't kind of move my machines to do a video. I can't keep my stuff safe. I can't have private client meetings. I can't do what I want, basically, and I'm selfish. So having a studio for me has been 10 out of 10 to the development of my career. Next, we've got PR. Now, PR is a bit of a sore spot for me because I probably say I've invested in the region of about 20 grand on PR companies over the space of like 5 years. And that's not actually a lot of money. I haven't had the best of luck with PR companies pushing my business forward. And I'm not sure that if that's because we have not delivered the correct deliverables that we want to the PR company, or they just haven't done a good job. So my the 2 or 3 times that I've used a PR company, it's been quite frustrating. There was one occasion where I used a really good freelancer, and this is where I would encourage the PR element. Use a freelancer who is dedicated purely to your label, because they will fight for you. I feel more than a PR company would, in my experience. When I realized that a PR company as a whole was never really going to do what I needed to for my brand, I shifted the money we were spending on that retainer to social media ads. And combined with a good social media strategy in terms of content and paid ads, in 1 year, I grew my following. I think it was 11,000 followers in 1 year, which was phenomenal for the business, for the brand name itself. And I don't think that the PR company would have done that for me. So I would say that in terms of my career, and I'll say generally, just be careful when you get a PR company. I would put a PR company at, I'll put it at a 2 actually. Next, we've got business acumen. Now, I always say that the best, most talented designer in the world will never get the credit that they deserve or be known to the world if they don't know how to market their own product and the market themselves. Now, some may argue that I'm not the best designer in the world. I would tell you flat that I am, because I know the challenges that I face to get to where I am. And also, in terms of the design, my technical knowledge, my approach is bang on. But park that to one side. The whole business acumen thing is as important as the design skills itself. One really isn't any important than the other, because it goes back to that story I was saying about the fashion shows. People can tell you that your stuff is great. I know it's great because I designed it. That's why it's in the fashion show. But if you haven't got your brain switched on to figure out, people are saying all this positive stuff, but why is nobody buying? If you haven't got that switched on, then you don't have the business acumen. You will just go in this continuous cycle of producing stuff just for the sake of it, just because you think you like it. And really and truly, that's what you want to do. That's fine. There's really no criticism. But for those of you that want to kind of build your business and grow your brand, having a knowledge on how to grow the business and how to scale, that's where you really need to put the kind of pedal to the floor and learn. Get mentors around you, listen to videos, read books. So I personally have been mentored by Karen Millen, the former, I think, CEO of Urban Outfitters. What was his name? Hugh Wala, I think that's how I pronounce it. And then one of the former board execs at Gymshark. And then I've worked at McQueen, I've worked at Kanye West, I've worked at Victoria Beckham, I've worked at Roland Murray. So I've worked around all these businesses and designers, and I've learned the business from them and implemented what I've seen from them within my own business. So I would say that the business acumen for me and my progression has been, I'll give it a 9 because it's not the most important thing, but it is very important. Next is the niche. And when I say niche, I mean your niche as a designer. Now, up until recently, I had a strapline on my social media that labeled me as the straight guy designer women's wear. And I thought it was quite funny actually, because there aren't that many straight guys in fashion, on my level anyway. There aren't that many straight guys in fashion on my level doing women's wear. And also, there aren't that many straight guys on my level in fashion designing women's wear that aren't gay and that are black men. So I am a unicorn, and that is my niche. So I identified my niche very early on, and I've just consistently ran with it. And that's been very helpful in terms of my personal brand progression, because anyone that's come along the journey with me has seen me go from selling with Topshop to ASOS to Orders to working at McQueen to losing my business to working on the project for Sportscraft and Adidas for the Australian team to working on Squid Games to working on a project for Ferrari to working on a project for Novikov. People have come with me on my personal journey of the straight guy designer women's wear. So the niche aspect has been very important. I'll put it at an 8 out of 10, the whole personal brand niche element. And the final one is the customer. Now, there was a period where the person who I thought I was selling to was not the person, the person I wanted to sell to was not the person that was buying my product. And I realized that by looking at the data of the sales. And then some of these women I met through focus groups. And it was quite a difficult point because I had to decide, am I going to carry on what I'm doing to make sure I'm speaking to that customer that I want to, or am I going to shift my approach and speak more directly to the person that's buying my products? And I don't think I've ever come to a definitive decision on that because it's still a work in progress. Like I said earlier on, I'm a straight guy doing women's wear. So I'm not coming at the fashion business from a first-hand point of view. I'm not my target customer. I'm not even gay. So I am the last person that understands women. The way I understand women is through looking at my wife, her friends, professional women that I encounter. So it's all secondhand information. And then from that, I have to deduce what I'm going to implement within the business that's going to be effective towards making a sale. And I think that's one of the hardest elements of my job is creating a clear message to my target customer. But I would say that I am relatively clear now who the target customer is. Just day by day, with the aid of social media and all these kind of research tools I have around me, the learning of the customer is a kind of growing and continuous process. So I would put the customer at I put that quite important at an 8 out of 10. So yeah, that's my general experience of fashion and the things that I guess it's clear what I think is important. Obviously, you guys might have a different opinion, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one.